עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו רננה. עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו. כי השם הוא אלוהים, הוא עשנו ולא אנחנו. כי השם הוא אלוהים, אנחנו עמו וצאן מרעיתו. השם הוא אלוקים, אנחנו עמו צאן מרעיתו. ולשוננו רינה כהמון גלה, ושפתותינו שבח כמרחבי רקיע. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך על אחת מאלף אלפי אלפים. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך על אחת מאלף אלפי אלפים. ברוב מדי פעמים טובות שעשית עמנו ועם אבותינו, ועינינו מאירות כשמש וחי הריח, וידינו פרוסות כניש השמיים, ורגלינו קלות קלות כאיילות. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך על אחת מאלף אלפי אלפים. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך על אחת מאלף אלפי אלפים. ברוב מדי פעמים הטובות שעשית עמנו ועם אבותינו. ולשוננו רינה, ושפתותינו שבח כמרחבי רקיע. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות והסליח לי לעולם, בצדק ובמשפט, בחסד וברחמים. והסליח לי לעולם, בצדק ובמשפט, בחסד וברחמים. והסליח לי באמונה, והסליח לי באמונה, וידע את השם, והסליח לי באמונה, והסליח לי באמונה, וידע את השם. והסליח לי לעולם, בצדק ומשפט, בחסד וברחמים. והסליח לי לעולם, בצדק ומשפט, בחסד וברחמים. והסליח לי באמונה, והסליח לי באמונה, וידעת את השם, והסליח לי באמונה, והסליח לי באמונה, וידעת את השם. וידעת את השם, והסליח לי באמונה, והסליח לי באמונה, וידעת את השם, את השם.
Boker Tov. Boker Tov, good morning, good Yantif, Shana Tova. It's good to be with all of you this morning as we embark on our Yom Kippur family service this morning. I want to take a second just to welcome you first to Congregation Beth Am. If this is your first time or your 100th time, welcome. I'm joined by my colleagues, Rabbi Jeremy Morrison, Rabbi Sarah Weissman, Cantor Jamie Spall, Rabbi John Prosnett, and I'm Heath Wattenmaker. As we begin our service this morning, I want to encourage you to get whatever space that you're in this morning. I want you to go get it ready as a holy place, a place for prayer. Try turning off all the devices except whatever you're streaming this one on, and maybe whatever you're using for a sidur, a machzor, although you don't even need one for this service because all of the prayers that we're going to sing this morning will be up on the screen for you as well. So you don't need anything else. And try to turn off your devices, remove any distractions, and find a comfortable place to sit. If you're fasting today, which is traditionally part of how we observe Yom Kippur, take a note of how your body is feeling right now. Finally, if you received a mystery box from Beth Am, a kit with all sorts of different great supplies throughout the holidays, you may have noticed that we included a bingo card, or maybe even a couple of bingo cards if there's more than one kid in your family, so that you can follow along with our service and see if any of the words or themes on those cards come up. Maybe challenge somebody else in your family to see who is following along a little more closely this morning. We'll continue our service with Psalm 150. We'll sing out words of praise with all the instruments at our disposal. continue with our prayer of community, our call and answer, our prayer that asks, are you ready? And we respond, yes, we're ready to pray. So if you're able, please rise for Baruch Hu. Light to the earth and its creatures. Your goodness renews the creation each day. Infinite, varied, and rich are your works, divine artist. All of them wrought with wisdom. The whole earth is teeming with life. Awestruck by the universe, work of your hands. Let all life bless you, praise you, and celebrate the beauty of your lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMe'orot. Continue with words of Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Shem kevod mochoto leolam va'ed.
You can be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha V'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta ba'am, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha b'derech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, uv'shartam le'ot ayadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, uv'taftam al mezuzot beitecha, Uvisharecha leman tizkeru ba'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Amen.
And join with us in reading these words that are on the screen. During the holiest days of our year, we renew our promise to stand up for what is right. We will not stand with our feet frozen to the ground and our arms limp by our sides. We will not stay silent when our voice is needed. We will not hide. We will not walk away. When people are sad, we will comfort them. When people are mean, we will stop them. When someone is hungry, we will feed them. When someone is cold, we will find them shelter. When there are tears, we will dry them. When there are hopes, we will support them. We know how slavery and sadness feel. We renew our promise this day to not stand idly by when others are suffering. We renew our promise this day to bring all people into our song of freedom. And so we sing this song of freedom on this day as we stand up. We sing the song of freedom just as the Israelites sang this song of freedom as they stood on the shores by the Reed Sea.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אליי. שירה חדשה שבחו גאולים, לשבחך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Zu Israel, Kuma Betzrat Israel, Uvetechinu Mecha, Yehuda ve'Israel, Go'aleinu, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Israel.
We continue now with the Amidah, our standing prayer. And so please rise if you are able. And we sing these words of praise as we cross now into the core of our service.
Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Adonai simchatai tiftach, ufi yagiti latecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka ve'Elohei Rachel גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו
You can be seated. The next part of our Amidah prayer that is special for the high holidays is called Unatana Tokef, and it describes how holy and awesome this day is. It also imagines God opening a big book, the book of life. And so in this prayer, we ask that we be written into the book of life for the coming year.
Unatana Tokef Kedushat Hayom Ki hu nora vayom uvoti nase malchutecha vichon bechesed kisecha v'teishev alav be'emet.
Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires highest praise for your dominion. Your reign is a reign of truth. Today you open the book of life so that we can read what we can read is written on its pages. Today you ask us to open our hearts and reflect on what we have said and done this past year. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. But throughout the year the book of life is open, and the choices we make leave a mark on our world. And so we ask ourselves and each other, who will choose to live a good life? Whose hands will cause hurt, and whose hands will help heal? Who will speak up, and who will be silent? Who will be wise enough to learn from others? Who will be strong enough to make good choices? Who will be greedy and who will be grateful? Who will break people down and who will build people up? Who will choose to be a blessing? Return to the right path through prayer and through righteous giving, we can earn a new page in the book of life and write a better story in the new year. We'll take a few moments now for private, silent prayer.
We've reached the Avinu Malkeinu prayer, which describes God in different ways. So as we stand and open the ark and sing this prayer, I invite you to think about the ways you think of God. Where do you think of God? And when you think of God, what do you think God is like? And at some point, you can even share that with your parent or your grandparent. But right now, I'll ask everyone to rise, and we'll read the Avinu Malkeinu together in English. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, we have missed the mark before you. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families. Avinu Malkeinu, help us bring an end to sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, Let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, help us write our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed ve'oshienu. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed ve'oshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu v'aneinu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, udvar Adonai miYerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed alafim, Nosei avon v'avesha v'chata'a v'nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei avon v'avesha v'chata'a v'nakeh. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai yachdav.
Well, we have a very special Torah portion and Torah reading for this Yom Kippur morning. It's a section from the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim, which is a special section which talks about the covenant between God and the Jewish people. It's towards the end of the book of Deuteronomy, at the very end of the Torah. Right before the Israelites are about to enter into what is today the land of Israel, into the promised land. And it begins with a beautiful section that talks about how all of the community comes together. Every single member of the community, from the most dignified to the newest babies, they all come together in the camp. And we have a real special treat today because two of our high school students, the president and the vice president of BADI, the Beth Am Temple Youth, Lauren Lederer and Jacob Siegel, are going to offer the special blessings before the chanting of the Torah. And we have a terrific chanter, one of our amazing 8th graders, Rachel Berry, will be chanting the words from Deuteronomy.
Ya'amdu Yaakov Shmuel ben Leah v'Dan, v'Leah bat Levi v'Rivka Ruth.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem. Roshechem shiftechem ziknechem v'sotrechem kol ish Yisrael. Tapchem neshechem v'gerecha asher bekerev machanecha. Mechotev eitzecha ad shoev meimecha le'avracha bivrit. Adonai Elohecha uvalato asher Adonai Elohecha koreiti mecha hayom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Which means, you stand this day, all of you, in the presence of Adonai your God, your tribal heads, your elders and your officials, all the men of Israel, your children, your wives, even the stranger within your camp, from the one who cuts your wood to the one who draws your water, to enter into the covenant of Adonai your God, and the oath that Adonai your God makes with you this day with its sanctions, to establish you as God's people and to be your God, as promised to you and your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I make this covenant with its sanctions not with you alone, but both with those who are standing here with us this day before Adonai our God, and with those who are not with us here this day.
When all these things befall you, the blessing and the curse that I have set before you, and you take them to heart amidst the various nations to which Adonai your God has banished you, and you return to Adonai your God, and you and your children heed God's command with all your heart and soul, just as I enjoin upon you this day, then Adonai your God will restore your fortunes and take you back in love. He will bring you together again from all the peoples where Adonai your God has scattered you. Even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, from there Adonai your God will gather you. From there God will fetch you. And Adonai your God will bring you to the land that your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will make you more prosperous and more numerous than your fathers.
Then Adonai your God will open up your heart and the hearts of your offspring to love Adonai your God with all your heart and soul, in order that you may live. Adonai your God will inflict all those curses upon the enemies and foes who persecuted you. You, however, will again heed Adonai and obey all God's commandments that I enjoy upon you this day. And Adonai your God will grant you abounding prosperity in all your undertakings. In the issue, Adonai will again delight in your well-being, as God did in that of your ancestors. Since you will be heeding Adonai your God and keeping God's commandments and laws that are recorded in this book of the teaching, once you return to Adonai your God with all your heart and soul, surely this instruction which I adjoin upon you this day is not too baffling for you, nor is it beyond reach. It is not in the heavens that you should say, who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us and impart it to us, that we may observe it.
Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us, that we may observe it? No, the thing is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart to observe it. See, I set before you this day life and prosperity, death and adversity. For I command you this day to love Adonai your God, to walk in God's ways, and to keep God's commandments, God's laws, and God's rules, that you may thrive and increase, and that Adonai your God may bless you in the land that you are about to enter and possess. But if your heart turns away, and you give no heed, and are lured into the worship and service of other gods, I declare to you this day that you shall certainly perish. You shall not long endure on the land that you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life, if you and your offspring would live, by loving Adonai your God, heeding God's commands, and holding fast to God. For thereby you shall have life and shall long endure upon the soil that Adonai swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them.
While the Torah is out, Torah being a source of strength and life for our people, we offer a Mishaberach Lecholim, a prayer for those in need of healing. Someone who needs healing today, please say their name aloud. We hold them all in our hearts.
one of the Haftarot assigned for Yom Kippur is the story of Jonah. And so this is a Devar Torah about Jonah and also about whales.
Today I want to talk about two stories, both about whales and about humans. More particularly, one is a story about humans and whales, the other is about a human, and to be more precise, a big fish. You might be familiar with both of these stories. I know that you probably know at least one of them. One's the story of Jonah, a story that we read on Yom Kippur, a story that we read today. The other is a story that was told in the New York Times Magazine a number of years ago by a writer named Charles Sept. It's important to read these stories in different ways. Sept's story, called Whales Watching Us, is about the pursuit of scientific truth, while the story of Jonah is about all sorts of truths, none of them scientific. But there are other interesting connections between these two stories. One of these stories is about a world turned upside down. It's about a prophet named Jonah, who says no to God when he is called. He actually doesn't say anything. He just runs away. And that's not what prophets typically do. Furthermore, and this is how you know it's not a serious story, he's told to go to Nineveh and tell them to change their ways, otherwise their world will be destroyed. That would be kind of like my telling you to go to Hong Kong and to stand on a corner there and shout out, "Change your ways." It's also about a man who was swallowed whole by a whale and is then spit up on dry land. He's a little wet and a little smelly. This is a world turned upside down. In part, this story is a fantasy, and actually, it's a deliberate parody. It's a funny story about serious things. It's also a story, in part, about humans seeking forgiveness. The other story is a story about the world being turned right side up, about whales returning from near extinction, and as we'll see, it's potentially about whales granting forgiveness. Read together, these stories about whales and humans can help us understand better who we are and what we are doing together during these days of repentance. These stories take place in two different places. Years ago, Sept traveled to Baja California Sur in Mexico and to Laguna San Ignacio to explore some incredible stories about whales, specifically about eastern Pacific gray whales and their return to these Pacific waters. Baja California is a breeding ground for whales. And I don't know if you've ever gone on a whale watch, but Sept went on some whale watches to find out about these magnificent mammals who are very playful and friendly. But things weren't always this way. As we know, humans, for a very long time, haven't been very nice to whales. Much like their extinct Atlantic counterparts, the eastern Pacific grays were nearly hunted out of existence as recently as 80 years ago. And for many years thereafter, human-whale relations in Laguna San Ignacio were testy at best. Stories circulated about female grays smashing boats and overturning kayaks, and local fishermen and visitors alike made a point of steering clear of whales, ever mindful of their fearsome reputations and of the turbulent history of human-whale interactions in San Ignacio. But then, things started to change. It began with fishermen changing their actions. A gray whale hunting ban agreed upon by most of the world's whaling nations in 1937, along with the inherent resilience and adaptability of the eastern Pacific gray, has since allowed the species a rather remarkable rebound. Its current population is estimated to be in the range of 18,000, and in 1994, the gray became the first marine mammal to be removed from protection under the Federal Endangered Species Act. The eastern Pacific gray has thus far proved to be one of the few whale conservation success stories. And slowly, once again, the whales started to be playful and interactive. But what is particularly interesting, and what baffles scientists, is that after so much destruction, after having humans acting so poorly towards them, the gray whales of Baja now can't seem to get enough of us humans. As one scientist told Sept, it's extraordinary. At precisely the time when you'd expect them to be the most defensive, when they are in their breeding grounds, they're incredibly social. They'll come right up to boats, let people touch their faces, give them massages, rub their mouths and tongues. So why do they do this? What makes a whale tick? What is it like inside of a whale? Scientists have been doing a lot of research into how whales think and behave. Scientific research has forced us to reconsider what was once thought to be a distinct boundary between the whale's world and our world. For it turns out, whales are a lot like humans. According to Sept, whales, we now know, teach and learn. They scheme, they cooperate, and they grieve. They recognize themselves and their friends. They know and fight back against their enemies. Russian scientists found the first definitive evidence that whales do, in fact, dream. And perhaps most stunningly, given all of our transgressions against them, they may even, in certain circumstances, have learned to trust us again. Scientists are even suggesting that since we have made amends to the whales, at least in Baja, Mexico, the whales seem to be giving us another chance. The story of Jonah, like the story of the whales in Baja, is a story of second chances. After he gets spit up onto a beach, God gives Jonah another chance to go to Nineveh, and he goes. And there, Jonah tells them to change their ways, and they listen. The people of Nineveh make amends. In an act of human conservation, the people of Nineveh apologize and God forgives them. Here's a very short story about a whale offering forgiveness. A female humpback was spotted in December 2005 just off the coast of San Francisco. She was entangled in a web of crab trap lines, hundreds of yards of nylon rope that had become wrapped around her mouth, torso, and tail, and she struggled to stay afloat. A rescue team arrived and decided that the only way to save her was to dive in and cut her loose. For an hour, they cut at the lines and rope, all the while trying to steer clear of a tail they knew could kill them with one swipe. When the whale was finally freed, the divers said she swam around them for a time in what appeared to be joyous circles. She then came back and visited with each one of them, nudging them all gently as if in thanks. The divers said it was the most beautiful experience they ever had. As for the diver who cut free the rope that was entangled in the whale's mouth, her huge eyes were following him the entire time, and he said that he will never be the same. Now, we don't know definitively if the whales there in Baja are actually forgiving us, if that is what they are doing. But we do know definitively that we have come together on this day to seek forgiveness and to change our behavior. During these 10 days, we seek to turn right side up, both ourselves and our world. That's what happened in Baja California Sur in response to the whale's call. And that's what we are to do today in response to this call.
We continue now with Ashamnu, which is our confession. And together we will recite this list of sins that we've committed as a community. And if you'd like, every time we say a new sin, you can give your heart a tap as a sign of our repentance.
Tafalnu sheker,
Tafalnu sheker,
aida 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 aida
Sometimes we miss the mark, or we don't try our best. Sometimes we miss the mark on purpose, and sometimes by accident. Sometimes we miss the mark by not caring, and sometimes by being mean. Sometimes we miss the mark by acting like we are better than others, and sometimes by not listening. Sometimes we miss the mark by telling lies, and sometimes by hurting people's feelings. Sometimes we miss the mark by being selfish, and sometimes by losing our temper. God, none of us is perfect. We remember the times we have missed the mark, so that next time we can do better. Forgive us and help us to try harder. Help us to learn from our mistakes. Help us to be the best people we can be.
So just like when we do something wrong to a fellow human, and when we want their forgiveness, we go and we express what we've done wrong, Once we've done that, we ask for their forgiveness. So too, that's what we're doing today on Yom Kippur. We've expressed to God what we have all done wrong, and now with these words, we ask for God's forgiveness. For all these wrongs, O God, we ask your forgiveness. For the wrong that we have committed before you with a confused heart, for the wrong we have committed before you by lying, for the wrong that we have committed before you by making excuses, for the wrong that we have committed before you without meaning to do so, for the wrong that we have committed before you by being unkind to others. For all these wrongs, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, and grant us atonement. Having now admitted our mistakes and having sought forgiveness from God, we turn now and look forward into this new year. And last time we were together on Rosh Hashanah, we asked for you to make pledges and commitments, the ways in which you would act differently in the new year. And so in these moments, we want to share with you all that you shared with us.
invite you all to rise. Return the Torah to the ark with the words of Eitz Chaim Hi.
Eitz Chaim Hi lama chazikim ba v'tomechea Meshar Eitz Chaim Hi lama chazikim ba v'tomechea Meshar supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom.
We have a few short announcements. One of them is, it was just so amazing to see our high schoolers, Jacob and Lauren and Rachel, reading Torah and offering the blessings. If you are interested in ever being part of some of our youth group programs, these programs specifically for our 6th through 8th graders and as well as our high schoolers, we invite you to join us with Batty and Badgie. You can find out all the information on the Beth Am webpage. And then also for later in the day, our services continue. At 10:30 is our main morning service. At 1 o'clock begins our study sessions, and at 2:15 is a second round of study sessions, including a special study session specifically for youth ed families. You can find all of that information on the Beth Am webpage or in the email that we sent out on Friday. Our 4 o'clock is our afternoon service. Around 5 begins our Yisker and Nila service, and our final blast of Tekiah Gidolah will be around 6:45 this evening. Next weekend is Sukkot. We have a lot planned for Sukkot, and the following weekend is Simchat Torah. We hope you can join us. You can even find us around town next weekend in a mobile sukkah that will be driven to different neighborhoods across our area. It should be a lot of fun. And then finally, I saw that there were a lot of people pledging or making a commitment for Tzedek, for helping the world, and Tzedakah. We'll put a slide up on our screen where Beth Am is committed this year and this season. We encourage you to be as generous as possible with both our wildfire emergency fund. We know that there are wildfires in our area just this morning. And our hunger, we know hunger is real in this community. Some of our partners, both in Israel and locally, are experiencing more demand than ever. And then, of course, in this season, we are always continuing our nonpartisan voter engagement and advocacy. You can find all of that information, including ways to donate, on the betham.org/justice on our webpage. It's been a delight having you with us this morning. I'm sorry we can't reach out and give you a hug, but we'll do so virtually. All the clergy is going to do so. Let's see it, team. And we'll sing the words of Hashivenu together.
Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai.
Oh
Gamar Chatima Tova, may you be inscribed and sealed in the book of life.
Shana
Shana
Tova.
Tova.
עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו. דעו כי השם הוא האלוקים, הוא עשנו ולא אנחנו. דעו כי השם הוא אלוקים, אנחנו עמו וצאן מרעיתו. עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו ברננה. עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו. עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו ברננה. עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו. דעו כי השם הוא אלוקים, הוא עשנו ולא אנחנו. דעו כי השם הוא אלוקים, אנחנו עמו וצאן מרעיתו. עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו ברננה. עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו. עבדו את השם בשמחה, בואו לפניו.